Hello there. This is Goodwill Hunting. It's female worshiping Drac. So even though I enjoyed it way back in the late 90s, it does have a lot to offer, but in the end it fails. It doesn't score a touchdown. Because in the end, the therapy is what? To make Will here worthy of female company, as opposed to what it's really supposed to be about, which is you don't want to go to jail. I'll give you the setup. Will here, played by Matt Damon, he's a genius. He's all his potential, but he was abused as a child by his father. Now he has trust issues and anger issues, and he's going to get himself put in jail. And Rob Williams here plays Sean, and he's going to try to give him therapy so that he'll get back on the right track. So that's the gist of the film. But because Will here is so confrontational, he wants to fight with his therapist. And he finds his weak spot. Guess what his weak spot is? The guy's wife died of cancer. And because he's died of cancer, now it's a weak spot. But this is something about the film you should know. It's important that Sean here, his wife died of cancer as opposed to divorce. Because what he's done is for the audience, he gets validated to us by his wife. You know, he was a good little servant right up to the very end. That's what a widower means. That's why widowers have so much validation to them. If he was a divorcee, he would have been a guy who was tossed by his wife, and he would just be a loser. So that's why the film has him as a widower. We'll see.
If you can follow what I just said. Will's idea of what a counsellor will do is rip apart his life with a very deep, clinical interpretation that punctures right to the centre, you know.
You're just pissing your pants, you're crying for the harbor, so maybe you do what you gotta do to get out. You know, maybe you became a psychologist.
This is a painting that Sean made, and he's going to psychoanalyze it, Will here, just to get at him.
Evasive, painful interpretation that he expects Sean will make about him.
Maybe you're in the middle of a storm, a big fucking storm. The sky's falling on your head, the waves are crashing over your little boat, the oars are about to snap. You're just pissing your pants, you're crying for the harbor, so maybe you do what you gotta do to get out. You know, maybe you became a psychologist.
If you watch Sean during this, you can see he feels uncomfortable, so you know Will is at least partly right. I would say...
Oh, by the way, the guy speaking is our hero, my little thought tree, the counselor.
The part he's right about is that it is a very sad painting that expresses a lot of loneliness and a feeling of being lost. The big storm, the waves crashing, all's about to snap. Will's right there. Personally, I'd imagine the painting is more to do with Sean's mourning after his wife's death. I'd guess that's when he painted it.
Of course, there you go. And you know there's something? This guy, you know, Sean, he hasn't gotten over it. It's important for the audience that he hasn't gotten over it. Because you know something? If he did and he found a new woman, that would kill at least some of the romance fantasy, the worship of the one, right? If his wife could be replaced with a new woman, then she's more of an ordinary human being. So he can't be together with a new woman. They can't show Sean get together with a new woman. That's for Will.
That's why there's only one person in the boat who feels lonely and lost and without any direction. Without his wife, Sean feels lost at sea. Will gets that bit wrong though, and this is what's very interesting about it. Will imagines Sean was lost at sea in his younger life, while he was still growing up when he painted this, still figuring out what to do with his life. A little further, push a little more, and he'll have his victory.
You married the wrong woman? What happened? Did she leave you? Was she, banging some other guy?
There's genuine fear in...
Yeah, see, this is for the audience again. This isn't a mistake as far as the audience is concerned. They want Sean here to be pissed because they worship the opposite sex. They worship this ideal woman who's in love for you, for being you, and she can't be replaced. And so, of course, this is the proper reaction, even though my little thought tree says, oh, it's not the right one. Even in his mind, I suspect it is the right one, because everyone needs something sacred. And since there's no God anymore, the sacred is the wife, the one who validates your very existence. Now, this is also important.
It's just a brief moment, though. I mean, of course it's brief. This is the first session. Will expects confrontation and games of power with everyone he encounters. You're not going to change that after one simple comment. He reads one book on the shelf. He shakes his head a little, then notices a picture of Sean in the army. Now,
you see, this is important to the audience because they need to give Sean street cred. He's not a wimp. It's not good enough for the audience for Sean to be just a good guy with well-meaning intentions. He's got to be a tough guy. And so he's got to be in the audience, and he's supposed to have been where he's got experience, which begs the question, suppose he never went into the army. Are we supposed to not listen to what Sean has to say if he hasn't been vetted by the military, right? And as they showed, he's sorrowful. He's by himself. He drinks by himself. Where are all these guys? Where are his friends? Where's his buddies here? How come they're not shown in this film? You know why? Because guys get in the military and they only care about each other while they're in danger. But as soon as it's over, it's adios. Sean here wraps his life around this one woman to worship. And these guys are all doing the same as well. They don't give a shit about him. He doesn't give a shit about them. That's why they're not involved in each other's lives anymore. So you've got to know that too. That's very important. And here he is on the bench giving his talk.
Thinking about it, something occurred to me. I fell into a deep, peaceful sleep and haven't thought about you since.
which of course points to what we'd seen before of Sean drinking alone in his room while Will was out having a...
There you go, he's drinking alone in his room. Where's his army buddies? How come if this therapist is all about growth, how come he didn't get back on the horse and find a date and start looking for another woman if he desperately needs someone in his house? Because we know why. Because if he did, it would downplay this fantasy about, I met the one and she can't be replaced. That's why he can't do it. The story needs him to be alone. The story needs him to be forever pining for this dead woman and give him therapy to himself by making others feel better, right? And in the end scene of this movie, Sean here, or I should say Will here, will end up with a woman driving off in the car. Spoilers, because that's the big dream, right? It's like, what is that? The Christmas Carol, right? Marley is doomed. So the best thing you do is help Scrooge get out. That's what this is. Now, if I was Will, I would bitch slap Sean when she said this to me.
Sean says is pretty straightforward. Through various examples such as...
I ask you about war, you probably throw Shakespeare at me, right? Once more into the breach, dear friends.
Yeah, he's downplaying. Will has been abused since he was a boy. He's been in a war zone, only he had no defense, no friends, no backup. This guy here probably volunteered to go to the military for his own desires, for his own end. You know, he had, choice, and he had backup with his friends, and they had equal means to fight. They're murdering these other guys and taking their stuff. That's what war is. Murder, it's sanctioned murder and theft. And then he got to quit. He got to say, yeah, enough. Will doesn't get to do that. He had to grow up and get big enough to finally fight off his father and get on his own. He was stuck there, and he had no defenses and no one to back him up. Will has lived a lifetime in his childhood. He's been through hell. This guy's a loser by comparison. He's going to talk about what in these scenes. He says, "Oh, you've never had someone die in your lap, right? Right? Yet, if these guys who he misses so much are so important that they, it was so terrible that they died in your lap, how come he has nothing to do with them anymore? How come they aren't coming around and saying, hey, I'm going to move close to you so I can hang with you? Let's go for drinks. They aren't important to him. They're only important to him at the time. But as soon as he has no use for these guys, they're gone, and vice versa. So that's why I wouldn't take that shit from him if I was Will, right? And of course, again, what if he never had those experiences? Not every guy goes to war, right? So if Sean here didn't go to war, does that mean Will should just ignore him? Does that mean his life experiences don't count? Well, that's basically the message of this movie. You've got to be willing to sacrifice for the upper class and then sacrifice for the women, which is the higher upper class.
Beyond knowing he once visited Italy and went to the Sistine Chapel. But the second example, if I ask you about women, followed by...
But you can't tell me what it feels like to wake up next to a woman and feel truly happy.
Is a little more personal.
There you go. This guy is worshiping this one woman. And if it's so important, why doesn't he get a new one? Actually, in real life, that's what guys do. They struggle to get a new only one. They struggle to find a new, the only one. But they can't do it in this movie because it would destroy that narrative of being the only one, right?
And now we know he loved his wife. And then the third example about war, he follows it up by saying,
You've never held your best friend's head in your lap and watch him gasp his last breath.
There you go. Like I said, if these friends are so special to him, how come the other guys he doesn't talk to anymore? They aren't special to him. This is bullshit. This is complete bullshit. And this is the other issue that really I should do a whole separate video on. And this is how therapists, counselors deny reality.
Eve pauses to give your client a chance to express things.
I have been laid, you know.
That line always makes me laugh when I see this film because it refers back to the park bench scene. In the middle of Sean's speech there, he said to Will,
If I ask you about women, probably give me a silver, say your personal favorites. You may have even been laid a few times.
It was just a throwaway example Sean used for the larger point he was making back then, but clearly the comment bothered Will. You may have even been laid a few times. It stuck with him enough that he felt it was important 2 or 3 weeks later to make it clear to Sean that he has...
I got news for you, my little thought tree. Getting laid means something to Sean, and it means something to you, because getting laid means that women validate you. It's one of the ways that you get validated. Women have openly said, my little thought tree, that they wouldn't touch a man who was a virgin. So if you trumpet out that you've never been laid, you're not getting laid. You have to get laid in order to get laid. So it's important to all men, even this guy who will, and especially you, who will try to pretend otherwise.
Indeed being laid. And when Sean says,
Really? Good for you.
in general indifferent sort of manner, he adds braggingly,
Big time. Big time, right?
you know, it was desperately important for Will to tell his therapist. It's the second thing he tells his therapist after weeks of silence. I have been laid big time. Because at that age, losing your virginity feels important.
No. At any age, it is very important to men. Because like I said, if you don't get laid, guess what you are? You're not validated by the opposite sex. Women will avoid you if they find out you haven't been laid, ever. because women only care about the opinions of other women. Men, my little thought tree, oh, by in that way, that's you too. You're a man. They don't care about your opinions. They care about the opinions of other women. And if a man hasn't gotten laid and they know it, they won't touch him because he's a loser to them. That's how it works. How do I know? Because women have said so. They have said so. So for you to try and say, like, downplay this as if it's unimportant to men shows you what a loser you are. You shouldn't be counseling any guys. You should be kept away from them because you're a destructive force for men. So anyway, not to get too far over into that, this Good Will Hunting, it's just a bullshit movie in the end because it's always about the girl. That's it.
Maybe you wish you hadn't said that, but you know, it's such a serious thing that you can't take it back, and now I'm stuck in California. Someone doesn't really want to be with me, just wish they had a take back.
This is part of the little story.
There you go. There's the woman he's going to end up with. Minnie Driver was very big in the 90s. And of course, he voiced something that was really true. If he goes with California with this woman, he has no connections to anybody. He's leaving his best friends who have his back. If you watch this movie, he has 3 friends who have his back throughout the whole thing. And if he goes to California with this woman, he's leaving them behind for someone who's a question mark. And you know something? Male experience is that women don't have your backs. This woman could, like he said, get tired of him, decide she doesn't like him, and he's there all by himself. This is not just because he's injured. This is common sense by any guy. Any guy should think like this. You know, if this woman decides to dump him, which happens a lot, all of a sudden you're all on your own. And no, if a strange man in a city that nobody knows him, nobody cares about him. Low status men are nothing in society. So he has a complete right to feel this way. This is as far as I need to go, this video. Just know at the end, it's all happy because he gets in this car with this woman at the very end and leaves with her and is happily ever after. And he leaves his male friends and he never sees them again. Just like Sean here leaves his army buddies, he never sees them again. They leave the guys who supposedly support them, right? So they can put their entire body, worship around this woman. If something happens to her, they got to be a good little boy like Sean here and never get with another woman and just be this good little validated boy. Anyway, that's Good Will Hunting, female worshiping Drek. Thank you, everyone.